Thanks, everyone. The next piece we'll play is Source Code by Jessie Montgomery. Jessie has been the composer in residence at the Chicago Symphony for a long time. She writes a lot of incredible music. This one is about how spirituals are the lifeblood of her music. She takes the syntax of spirituals, the harmonies of spirituals, and works them into this piece, which kind of starts from bare bones lines and builds out and becomes more rambunctious, and takes us back into closure at the end.
afraid I don't know. Yes, you want 41 or you this is 41, this would be 43. Oh, English is 43 there?
41 is in front of you.
Yes. I will check that.
Thank you all for having us. Our last piece that we will be presenting to you all today is written by William Grant Still, who is known as the Dean of African American Music. He was born in 1895 and died in 1978. These three pieces that we will be bringing for you are called the Lyric Quartet. Originally, when he composed these pieces, he did not actually want to have them disclosed as they were written for friends of his. So he has three secret friends that he wrote these for. We don't know who the friends are. His daughter has conjectures, but we're not sure. But we would like to present to you all the Lyric Quartet by William Grant Still.
my experience and things like that, most of the folks who most deserve it better.
We want to thank the Music Trust Fund for offering grant support to have wonderful musicians such as Boston Public Quartet. So we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much. We're just going to settle in and get our mics working, and then we'll start off, and we appreciate your patience. Well, good evening. My name is Karen Gross-Horan, and as many of you know, I'm the Executive Director of Courageous Conversations Towards Racial Justice, and founded the organization back in 2016. So I think 2019 was the first year we did the community reading of Frederick Douglass, and it just has been so powerful. We continue it each year. Other than COVID. So I am really grateful for the partnership we have with Forbes House Museum, and really excited about the moderator we have tonight. So we will introduce him in a moment, and I'm just gonna kick it off to Heidi Vaughn, who's the Executive Director of Forbes House Museum. And thank you for having us.
So welcome everybody. It's so great to see you here. And thank you to the Boston Public Quartet.
Yay!
Did Karen already acknowledge their funder? I believe it's the Music Trust Foundation. Okay, just want to make sure because we're so grateful to have them back. They're a really nice way to set the mood for tonight. I don't know how many of you are very familiar with the house, but it was built in 1833. And before the Forbes family owned the land, it belonged to Governor Hutchinson. He was our last loyalist governor of Massachusetts, and the field across the way is named after him. But before that, we must remember and honor that this land originally belonged to the Neponset tribe of the Massachusetts people. And they stewarded it wisely through generations, and we're deeply grateful to them. So reading Frederick Douglass Together events like this one are happening throughout the Commonwealth. Thanks to the generous support from Mass Humanities, with funding made possible through the Massachusetts Cultural Council. This is the 4th year that we've hosted the event. So I'm curious, has anyone been here for all 4 years? Ooh. All right, well for you lucky people, we have t-shirts like the one Karen is wearing. And if you see Jade also wearing a lovely t-shirt, she will have a shirt for you. And then if there are any left, we can do a drawing and see who gets those, okay? So we're glad that you've stuck with us for the 4th year in a row. It's great to have you back. I'm also really grateful to be working with Karen and Courageous Conversations. I think they really make it a very meaningful experience for all of us. She reached out to Deshaun Washington, who's going to be our moderator tonight. I'm really looking forward to seeing where tonight's discussion will take us. To use the restroom, you just go through the front door, head to the rear of the house through the stairwell. There are snacks if you didn't see them under the smaller tent. And with that, I think we're ready to get started.
Tonight, we are so pleased to have our moderator, Deshaun Washington, the Massachusetts 2024 Teacher of the Year. He is a teacher like Massachusetts, someone that has the heart for equity and justice, as our organizations do. And when I saw him on LinkedIn, I'm like, this is a man that we want to moderate our conversation. So with that, Deshaun, please join us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deshaun Washington. I am the 2024 Massachusetts Teacher of the Year. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight as we celebrate the legacy of the late and Honorable Frederick Douglass, as we get a chance to read the meaning of the 4th of July, another year of celebration. I want to thank the Boston Music Quartet for a beautiful performance tonight. I want to thank Heidi and Karen for inviting me here tonight, and thank all of you for being here this evening as we get to celebrate and reflect on the message that we're going to be reading tonight. So to start off, we're going to go word by word in the reading of the speech of Frederick Douglass. Then I'm going to have a conversation with you all about this speech. And the message that I want you all to think about tonight as we read and we talk together is simply this. What is the 4th of July to Black America? What is the 4th of July to Black America? So I'll start off with the reading, and then I believe that you all have numbers on your chair. So you want to pay attention to those numbers so you know when to come up and to engage in the reading with us. Enjoy this process tonight. So we want to have ourselves a good time. The title is The Meaning of the 4th of July for the Negro. It's in the bridge. It was written by Frederick Douglass, July 5th, the year 1852. Mr. President, friends, and fellow citizens, The task before me is one which requires much previous thought and study for its proper performance. I do not remember ever have to appear as a speaker before any assembly more shrinkingly nor with great distrust of my ability than I do this day. The papers and placards say that I am to deliver a 4th of July oration. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, the distance between this platform and the slave plantation for which I escaped is considerable, and the difficulties to be overcome is getting from the latter to the former, and are by no means slight. There I am here today is to me a matter of astonishment as well as of gratitude.
This, for the purpose of this celebration, is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom. This, to you, is what the Passover was to the emancipated people of God. It carries your minds back to the day and to the act of your great deliverance. This celebration also marks the beginning of another year of your national life and reminds you that the Republic of America is now 76 years old. I am glad, fellow citizen, that your nation is so young. You are, even now, only in the beginning of your national career, still lingering in the period of childhood. I repeat, I am glad that this is so. There is hope in the thought, and hope is much needed under the dark clouds which lower above the horizon.
Fellow citizens, 76 years ago, the people of this country were British subjects. The style and title of your sovereign people, in which now you all glory, was not then born. You were under the British crown. Your fathers esteemed the English government as the home government. England as the fatherland, although a considerable distance from your home, imposed in the exercise of its parental paragraphs upon its colonial children such restraints, burdens, and limitations as in its mature judgment is deemed wise, right, and proper.
But your fathers, who had not adopted the idea of the infallibility of government and the absolute character of its acts, presumed to differ from the home government in respect to the wisdom and the justice of some of those burdens and restraints. They went so far as to pronounce the measures of government unjust, unreasonable, and oppressive, and altogether such as ought not to be quietly submitted to. I scarcely need say, fellow citizens, that my opinion of those measures fully accords with that of your fathers, feeling themselves harshly and unjustly treated by the home government. Your fathers, like men of honesty and men of spirit, earnestly sought redress. They petitioned and remonstrated. They did so in the decorous, respectful, and loyal manner. This, however, did not answer the purpose. They saw themselves treated with sovereign indifference, coldness, and scorn, yet they persevered.
Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers became restive under this treatment. They felt themselves the victims of grievous wrongs, wholly incurable in their colonial capacity. With brave man, there is always a remedy of oppression. Just here, the idea of a total separation of the colonies from the crown was born. It was a startling idea, much more so than we at this distance of time regard it. The timid and the prudent of that day were, of course, shocked and alarmed by it. Their opposition to the then dangerous thought was earnest and powerful. But amid all their terror and affrighted vociferations against it, the alarming and revolutionary idea moved on, and the country with it.
On the 2nd of July, 1776, the Old Continental Congress, to the dismay of the lovers of ease and the worshippers of property, clothed that dreadful idea with all the authority of national sanction. They did so in the form of a resolution. We seldom hit upon resolutions drawn up in our day, whose transparency is at all equal. It resolved that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown.
Citizens, your fathers made good on that resolution. They succeeded, and today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained is yours, and you therefore may properly celebrate this anniversary. The 4th of July is the first great fact in your nation's history, the very ring bolt in the chain of your undeveloped destiny.
Pride and patriotism, not less than gratitude, prompt me to celebrate and to hold it in perpetual remembrance. I have said that the Declaration of Independence is the ring bolt to the chain of your nation's destiny. So, indeed, I regard it. The principles contained in that instrument are saving principles. Stand by those principles. Be true to them on all occasions, in all places, against all foes, and at whatever cost.
Fellow citizens, I am not wanting in respect for the fathers of this republic. The signers of the Declaration of Independence were brave men. I cannot contemplate their great deeds with less than admiration. They were statesmen, patriots, and heroes, and for the good they did and the principles they contended for, I will unite with you to honor their memory. Number 8.
Pride and patriotism, not less than gratitude.
Number 10.
Number 10, they love their country.
Number 10, you said.
What number? 10.
Number 10.
At the top of page 3.
10 over here. Yeah. They loved their country better than their own private interests. And all will concede that it is a rare virtue that ought to command respect. He who will intelligently lay down his life for his country is a man whom it is not in human nature to despise. Your fathers staked their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor on the cause of their country. In their admiration of liberty, they lost sight of all other interests.
They were peacemen, but they preferred revolution to peaceful submission to bondage. They were quiet men, but they did not shrink from agitating against oppression. They showed forbearance, but they knew its limits. They believed in order, but not in the order of tyranny. With them, nothing was settled. That was not right. With them, justice, liberty, and humanity were final, not slavery and oppression. You may well cherish the memory of such men. They were great in their day and generation. Their solid manhood stands out the more as we contrast it with these degenerate times.
How circumspect, exact, and proportionate were all their movements. How unlike the politicians of an hour. Their statesmanship looked beyond the passing moment and stretched away in strength into the distant future. Mark them, fully appreciating the hardship to be encountered, firmly believing in the right of their cause, wisely measuring the terrible odds against them. Your fathers, the fathers of this republic, laid the cornerstone of the national superstructure, which has risen and still rises in grandeur around you.
of this fundamental work, this day is the anniversary. Our eyes are met with demonstrations of joyous enthusiasm. The causes which led to the separation of the colonies from the British Crown have never lacked for a time. They have all been taught in your common schools, narrated at your firesides, unfolded from your pulpits, and thundered from your legislative halls, and are as familiar to you as household words. They form the staple of your national poetry elements. I leave, therefore, the great deeds of your fathers to others.
My business, if I have any here today, is with the present. The accepted time with God and His cause is the ever-living now. We have to do with the past only as we make it useful to the present and to the future. Now is the time, the important time. Your fathers have lived, died, and have done their work, and have done much of it well. You live and must die, and you must do your work. You have no right to enjoy a child's share in the labor of your fathers, unless your children are to be blessed by your labors. You have no right to wear out and waste the hard-earned fame of your fathers to cover your indolence.
Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of national justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us?
Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions. Then would my task be light and my burden easy and delightful. But such is not the state of the case. I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us.
The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today?
Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. To forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treason, most scandalous and shocking, and would make me a reproach before God and the world.
My subject, then, fellow citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day from the slave's point of view, standing here, identified with the American bondman, making his wrongs mine. I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or to the professions of the present, The conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false to the future.
Standing with God and the crushed and bleeding slave on this occasion, I will, in the name of humanity, which is outraged, in the name of liberty, which is fettered, in the name of the Constitution and the Bible, which are disregarded and trampled upon, dare to call in question and to denounce, with all the emphasis I can command, everything that serves to perpetuate slavery, the great sin and shame of America. I will not equivocate. I will not excuse. I will use the severest language I can command, and yet not one word shall escape me that any man whose judgment is not blinded by prejudice, or who is not at heart a slaveholder, shall not confess to be right and just.
I fancy I hear one of my audience say, it is just in this circumstance that you and your brother abolitionists failed to make a favorable impression on the public mind. Would you argue more and denounce less? Would you persuade more and rebuke less? Your cause would be much more likely to succeed. But I submit, where all is plain, there is nothing to be argued. What point in the anti-slavery creed would you have me argue? On what branch of the subject do the people of this country need light?
Must I undertake to prove that the slave is a man? The slaveholders themselves acknowledge it in the enactment of laws for their government. They acknowledge it when they punish disobedience on the part of the slave. There are 72 crimes in the state of Virginia, which, if committed by a black man, subject him to the punishment of death, while only 2 of the same crimes will subject a white man to the like punishment. What is this but the acknowledgement that the slave is a moral, intellectual, and responsible being?
Southern statute books are covered with enactments forbidding, under severe fines and penalties, the teaching of the slave to read or to write. When you can point to any such laws in reference to the beasts of the field, then I may consent to argue the manhood of the slave. When the dogs in your streets, when the fowls of the air, when the cattle on your hills, when the fish of the sea and the reptiles that crawl shall be unable to distinguish the slave from a brute, then will I argue with you that the slave is a man.
Is it not astonishing that while we are plowing, planting and reaping, using all kinds of mechanical tools, erecting houses, constructing bridges, building ships, working in metals of brass, iron, copper, silver, and gold, that while we are reading, writing, and ciphering, acting as clerks, merchants, and secretaries, having among us lawyers, doctors, ministers, poets, authors, editors, orators, and teachers, that while we are engaged in all manner of enterprises common to other men, digging gold in California, capturing the whale in the Pacific, feeding sheep and cattle on the hillside, living, moving, acting, thinking, planning, living in families as husbands and wives and children, and above all, confessing and worshiping the Christian's God, and looking hopefully for life and immortality beyond the grave, we are called upon to prove that we are men.
Would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty? That he is the rightful owner of his own body? You have already declared it. Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? Is it to be settled by the rules of logic and argumentation, as a matter of descent with great difficulty involving a doubtful application of the principles of justice hard to be understood? How shall I look today in the presence of Americans to show that men have a natural right to freedom? To do so would be so make myself ridiculous and to offer an insult to your understanding. This is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven that does not know that slavery is wrong for him.
What? Am I to argue that it is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters? Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employments for my time and strength than such arguments would imply.
What, then, remains to be argued? Is it that slavery is not defined? That God did not establish it? That our doctors of divinity are mistaken? This is blasphemy in the thought. That which is inhumane cannot be defined. Who can reason on such proposition? I cannot. The time for such argument is past.
At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could I reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower of the shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused, and proprietary of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is a constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages.
There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States. At this very hour, go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and despotisms of the old world. Search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say with me that for revolting barbarity,
and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival.
Take the American slave trade, which we are told by the papers is especially prosperous just now, as the price of men was never higher, and which is carried on in all the large towns and cities in one half of this Confederacy. This trade is one of the peculiarities of American institutions. In several states, this trade is a chief source of wealth. It is called the internal slave trade, in order to divert it from the horror with which the foreign slave trade is contemplated.
The foreign slave trade has long been denounced by this government as piracy, as an execrable traffic. To arrest it, this nation keeps a squadron at immense cost on the coast of Africa. Everywhere in this country, it is safe to speak of this foreign slave trade as a most inhuman traffic, opposed alike to the laws of God and of man. It is, however, a notable fact, while so much execration is poured out by Americans upon those engaged in the foreign slave trade, the men engaged in the slave trade between the states pass without condemnation, and their business is deemed honorable.
Behold the practical operation of this internal slave trade, the American slave trade, sustained by American politics and American religion. Here you will see men and women reared like swine for the market. You know what is a swine drover? I will show you a man drover. They inhabit all our southern states. They perambulate the country and crowd the highways of the nation with droves of human stock. You will see one of these flesh jobbers armed with pistol, whip, and bowie knife, driving a company of 100 men, women, and children from the Potomac to the slave market at New Orleans. These wretched people are to be sold singly or in lots to suit purchasers. They are food for the cotton mill and the deadly sugar mill.
Mark the sad procession as it moves wearily along, and the inhuman wretch who drives them. Hear his savage yells and his blood-chilling oaths as he hurries on his affrighted captives. There see the old man with locks thinned and gray. Cast one glance, if you please, upon that young mother whose shoulders are bare to the scorching sun, her briny tears falling on the brow of the babe in her arms. See, too, that girl of 13 weeping, yes, weeping, as she thinks of the mother from whom she has been torn. The drove moves tardily. Heat and sorrow have nearly consumed their strength. Suddenly you hear a quick snap, like the discharge of a rifle. The fetters clank and the chain rattles simultaneously. Your ears are saluted with a scream that seems to have torn its way to the center of your soul. The crack you heard was the sound of the slave whip. The scream you heard was from the woman you saw with the babe. Her speed had faltered under the weight of her child and her chains. That gash on her shoulder tells her to move on.
Follow this drove to New Orleans. Attend the auction. See men examined like horses. See the forms of women brutally exposed to the shocking gaze of American slave buyers. See this drove sold and separated forever. And never forget the deep, sad sobs that arose from that scattered multitude. Tell me, citizen, where, under the sun, you can witness a spectacle more fiendish, and shocking. Yet this is but a glance at the American slave trade as it exists at this moment in the ruling part of the United States.
was born amid such sights and scenes. To me, the American slave trade is a terrible reality. The fleshmonger gathers up their victims by dozens and drives them chained to the general depot at Baltimore. When a sufficient number has been collected here, a ship is chartered for the purpose of conveying the forlorn crew to the Mobile or to New Orleans. From the slave prison to the ship, they are usually driven in the dark of night, in the deep, still darkness of midnight. I have been often aroused by the dead, heavy footsteps and the perpetuous cries of chained gang that passed over doors.
Fellow citizens, this murderous traffic is today an active operation in this boasted republic. In the solitude of my spirit, I see clouds of dust raised on the highways of the South. I see the bleeding footsteps. I hear the doleful wail of feared humanity. On the way to the slave markets, where the victims are to be sold like horses, sheep, and swine, knocked off to the highest bidder. There I see the tenderest ties ruthlessly broken to gratify the lust, caprice, and rapacity of the buyers and sellers of men. My soul sickens at the sight.
But a still more inhuman, disgraceful, and scandalous state of things remains to be presented. By an act of the American Congress, not yet 2 years old, slavery has been nationalized in its most horrible and revolting form. Mason and Dixon line has been obliterated. New York has become as Virginia, and the power to hold, hunt, and sell men, women, and children as slaves remains no longer a mere state institution, but is now an institution of the whole United States.
The power is coextensive with the Star-Spangled Banner and American Christianity. Where these go, may also go the merciless slave hunt. Where these are, man is not sacred. He is bird for the sportsman's gun. By that most foul and fiendish of all human decrees, the liberty and person of every man are put in peril. Your broad republic, no domain, is hunting ground for men.
Your lawmakers have commanded all good citizens to engage in this hellish sport. Your president, your secretary of state and force, as a duty you owe to your free and glorious country and to your God, and that you do this accursed thing. Not fewer than 40 Americans have, within the past 2 years, been hunted down and, without a moment's warning, hurried away in chains and consigned to slavery and excruciating torture. Some of these have had wives and children dependent on them for bread, but of this no account was made. The right of the hunter to his prey stands superior to the right of marriage, and to all rights in this republic, the rights of God included.
For black men, there is neither law nor justice, humanity nor religion. The fugitive slave law makes mercy to them a crime and bribes the judge who tries them. An American judge gets $10 for every victim he consigns to slavery and $5 when he fails to do so. The oath of any two villains is sufficient under this hell-black enactment to send the most pious and exemplary black men into the remorseless jaws of slavery. His own testimony is nothing. He can bring no witnesses for himself. The minister of American justice is bound by the law to hear but one side, and that side is the side of the oppressor.
Let this damning fact be perpetually told. Let it be thunder around the world that in tyrant killing, king hating, people loving, democratic Christian Americans, that seat of justice are filled with judges who hold their offices under an open, comparable bribe and are bound in deciding
in the case of a man's liberty to hear only his accusers.
In glaring violation of justice, in shameless disregard of the forms of administering law, in cunning arrangement to entrap the defenseless, and in diabolical intent, this fugitive slave law stands alone in the annals of tyrannical legislation.
American and Republican politics, not less than Republican religious, are flagrantly inconsistent. You boast of your love of liberty, your superior civilization, and your pure Christianity, while the whole political power of the nation is solemnly pledged to support and perpetuate the enslavement of 3 million of your countrymen. You hurl your anthems at the proud-headed tyrant of Russia and Australia, and pride yourself on the democratic institution, while you yourself consent to be mere tools and bodyguards of the tyrants of Virginia and Carolina.
You invite to your shores fugitives of oppression from abroad. Honor them with banquets, greet them with ovations, cheer them, toast them, salute them, protect them, and pour out your money to them like water. But the fugitives from your own land you advertise, hunt, arrest, shoot, and kill. You glory in your refinement and your universal education, yet you maintain a system as barbarous and dreadful as ever stained the character of a nation. A system begun in avarice, supported in pride, and perpetuated in cruelty.
You shed tears over fallen hungry, and make the sad story of her wrongs the theme of your poets, statesmen, and orators, till your gallant sons are ready to fly to arms to vindicate her cause against the oppressor. But in regard to the 10,000 wrongs of American slaves, you would enforce the strictest silence and would hail him as an enemy of the nation who dares to make those wrongs the subject of public discourse. You are all on fire at the mention of liberty for France or for Ireland, but are as cold as an iceberg at the thought of liberty for the enslaved of America.
You discourse eloquently on the dignity of labor, yet you sustain a system which, in its very essence, casts a stigma upon labor. You can bare your bosom to the storm of British artillery to throw off a 3-penny tax on tea, and yet wring the last hard-earned fathering from the grasp of black laborers of your country. You profess to believe that of one blood God made all nations of men to dwell on the face of all the earth, and hath commanded all men everywhere to love one another. Yet you notoriously hate and glory in your hatred all men whose skins are not colored like your own.
You declare before the world and are understood by the world to declare that you hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and yet you hold securely in a bondage which, according to your own Thomas Jefferson, is worse than ages of that which your fathers rose in rebellion to oppose, a 7th part of the inhabitants of your country.
Fellow citizens, I will not enlarge further on your national inconsistencies. The existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism as a sham, your humanity as a base pretense, and your Christianity as a lie. It destroys your moral power abroad. It corrupts your politicians at home. It saps the foundation of religion. It makes your name a hissing and a byword to a mocking earth.
It is the antagonistic force in your government, the only thing that seriously disturbs and endangers your union. It fetters your progress. It is the enemy of improvement, the deadly foe of education. It fosters pride. It breeds insolence. It promotes vice. It shelters crime. It is a curse to the earth that support it. And yet you cling to it as if it were the sheet anchor of all your hopes. Be warned. A horrible reptile is coiled up in your nation's bosom. The venomous creature is nursing at the tender breast of your youthful republic. For the love of God, tear away. Fling from you the hideous monster and let the weight of 20 millions crush and destroy it forever.
But it is answered in reply to all this that precisely what I have now denounced is in fact guaranteed and sanctioned by the Constitution of the United States. That the right to hold and to hunt slaves is a part of the Constitution framed by the illustrious fathers of this republic. Then I dare to affirm, notwithstanding all that I have said before, your fathers, instead of being the honest men I have before declared them to be, were the veriest impostors that ever practiced on mankind. This is the inevitable conclusion, and from it there is no escape. But I differ from those who charge this baseness on the framers of the Constitution of the United States. It is a slander upon their memory, at least so I believe, and others have, as I think, fully and clearly vindicated the Constitution from any design to support slavery for an hour.
Allow me to say, in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country. There are forces in operation which must inevitably work the downfall of slavery. I therefore leave off where I began, with hope, while drawing encouragement from the Declaration of Independence, the great principles it contains, and the genius of American institutions. My spirit is cheered by the obvious tendencies of the age. Nations do not now stand in the same relation to each other that they did ages ago. No nation can now shut itself up from the surrounding world and trot round in the same old path of its fathers without interference.
The time was when such could be done, but a change has now come over the affairs of mankind. Walled cities and empires have become unfashionable. The arms of commerce has bore away the gates of the strong city. Intelligence is penetrating the darkest corners of the globe. Wind, stream, and lightning are its chartered agents. Oceans no longer divide, but link nations together. From Boston to London is now a holiday excursion. Space is comparably annihilated. Thoughts expressed on one side of the Atlantic are distinctly heard on the other. In the fervent aspirations of William Lloyd Garrison, I say, and let every heart join in saying it.
All together. All Godspeed the day when human love shall cease to flow, and every clime be understood with the claims of human brotherhood, and each return for evil good, not blow for blow. That day will come all feuds to end, and change into a faithful friend each foe. Wow. All so much. I just want to note a few of our speakers that are candidates for state office. So Clinton Graham for state rep is in the back. Clinton read a few verses, and next to him, his opponent, Tony King. Thank you both for coming. I love that. You know, when Clinton was up reading, Tony was back playing with Clinton's daughter. It was beautiful. Let that be the world in which we are statespeople and that we work together to build bridges. That just meant so much. So thank you for being with us. I want to hand it over to our esteemed Deshaun for his remarks. Thank you.
What is the 4th of July to Black America? That's the question we'll be pondering on tonight. America the beautiful, America the free, the American dream, the land of opportunity, the pursuit of happiness, sweet land of liberty. These sayings and more, I'm sure we have all heard from time to time when someone describes America, or when we see an ad in the newspaper or a commercial on television that is standing for patriotism and American pride, particularly in seasons of a war or seasons of an election. During those seasons, especially the united we stand, as one body makes the headways, symbolically reminded us that the season of liberation, restoration, and salvation is imminent, if only we don't divide as we fall. Then comes the 4th of July, Independence Day, or Liberation Day. Happy 248 years old day. When I think about the 4th of July, thoughts of cookouts and barbecues come to mind. Cooling waves brushing the shores of the beach, booming fireworks lighting a light in the night sky, hanging out with loved ones, maybe on a vacation down to the Cape, enjoying the midsummer breeze. We have certainly painted a vivid picture of a joyous, united time together during the 4th. And certainly we should celebrate. Summertime, after all, is a season for us to reflect, slowing down that hustle and bustle that is September through the late spring, to be with those that we love. Yet on every 4th of July, we also remind that we are all celebrating freedom joyfully. Tonight, my most beautiful people, as we gather to commemorate another 4th of July national holiday, we reflect not only on the founding principles of this nation, but also on the ongoing struggle of equality, equity, and justice that stands the impact of our nation. It's therefore a fitting occasion to revisit the late Honorable Frederick Douglass in his powerful speech, What to a Slave is the 4th of July, delivered on July 5th, 1852. Douglass's words resonate with us still as they challenge us to confront the persistent realities of racial injustice, oppression, segregation, and institutionalized inequities, to name just a few that still plagues America. In this speech, Douglass questioned the meaning of independence to enslave African Americans. He exposed the hypocrisy of a nation celebrating freedom while millions of African Americans were enslaved, absent of enjoying the land of the free. Today, although slavery has been abolished, the question remains to what 4th of July is to Black America. Now, to answer this, we must confront the stark reality of modern day segregation, oppression, and racism. While legal segregation has been outlawed, de facto segregation persists in many forms. Just from a 2019 report from the Economic Policy Institute, American schools are actually more segregated today than they were in the 1960s. Black and Latinx students are more likely to attend schools with concentrated poverty, limited resources, and few opportunities to engage in advanced coursework. To put it another way, very recently we celebrated Brown v. Board 1954, its 70th year anniversary. And yet today we haven't made that progress of the United We Stand mantra that is of America. What is the 4th of July to Black America? Economic disparities also reveal the enduring impact of systematic and institutionalized racism in America. The median wealth of white households is nearly 10 times that of Black households. A 2001 article published by WBUR researchers found that the net worth of a white family in Greater Boston at the time was $247,000. And for a Black family was a mere $8. And for a Caribbean Black family was just $3,200. Furthermore, the wealth gap has been exacerbated by discriminatory practices such as redlining, predatory lending, and employment discrimination. This wealth gap has transformed into a generational wealth gap. What is the 4th of July to Black America? And let's take a moment to discuss the modern day criminal justice system, which disproportionately targets people of color, specifically that of Black men. Black Americans are incarcerated at more than 5 times the rate of white Americans. And for Black men, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 1,807 Black men per 100,000 were held in state or federal prisons in the United States during 2020 war after being sentenced. That's roughly 1 out of every 55. This number doesn't include people that's in county jails or pretrial confinement. This, along with police violence, remain at grave concern, with black people being more than twice as likely to be killed by police as white people. The deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others have sparked protests and demands for police reform and accountability. What is the 4th of July to Black America? And about the healthcare industry. Health disparities further illustrate the systematic inequalities faced by people of color. The COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately impacted Black and Latinx communities, which have experienced higher infection rates, hospitalizations, deaths. For example, according to the National Institute of Health, approximately 97.9 or 98 out of every 100,000 African Americans died of COVID-19. A mortality rate that's a third higher than Latinx at 65, more than double that of whites of 47, and Asians of 40 per 100,000 people. These disparities are rooted in long-standing inequities in access to health care, employment, housing. What is the 4th of July to Black America? So in the spirit of Mr. Douglas' speech, we must ask ourselves, how can we truly celebrate freedom when so many are still shackled by the chains of inequity? The 4th of July should be a time of reflection and recommitment to the ideals of liberty and justice for all. It is a reminder that our work is far from complete, and in honoring Mr. Douglas' legacy and the ongoing struggle for racial justice, we must take concrete steps together towards that change. Pushing legislation to pass laws like the $5.2 million housing bond, which will expand access to affordable housing for many Massachusetts residents. Or educational reform, including alternative pathways to programs to diversify our teaching staff of color across the Commonwealth, so schools are not divided in segregation, but united in integration. Criminal justice reform is imperative. We must end the practices of disproportionately harm of people of color, such as racial profiling and mandatory minimum sentences, and investing in community-based policing, mental health services, and rehabilitation programs that help build a more just and equitable system. Health care equality must be a priority. Expanding access to affordable health care, addressing social deterrents of health, and ensuring that communities of color receive resources that they need as essential steps in closing the health gap. Last but not least, we must continue to confront and dismantle the deeply rooted racism that permeates our society. This requires ongoing education, dialogue like we're going to have tonight, and action. It means listening to the voices of those who have been marginalized and working together to build a more inclusive, just nation. Frederick Douglass' words challenges us to look honestly at our past, our present, and strive for a future where we promise of liberty and justice that's fulfilled for all. And as we reflect on his words tonight, we're reflecting on the key question: what is the 4th of July to Black America? We're celebrating 248 years in this country. Lots of successes, lots of wins, lots of defeats. We've made progress, and progress still needs to be made. So as we join for discussion, first question for us, just to ponder and think about 248 years of existence in this country, well over 150 years since the speech that was given. What is the 4th of July today for Black America?